In July this year, in a small West Sussex village, people woke up one morning to an unfamiliar sight. Their new neighbours, a group of Buddhist monks, on their arms round. Their order has existed in the East for 2,500 years, and they've come to England now in response to a growing interest here in Buddhism. They aim to live the simple and disciplined life which the Buddha laid down for the earliest forest monks. There are many Buddhist groups in Britain, but this is the first attempt at such a traditional approach. They have to follow 227 rules which govern every aspect of their life. The rules provide them with a framework for developing spiritual insight and what the Buddhist scriptures call loving kindness towards all creation. The community consists of about 20 monks, novices and lay followers. Their day has begun at 4 a.m. with meditation followed by chanting in Pali. But very little of their day is taken up with ceremonies. They've just moved into a derelict Victorian house with a 100-acre forest nearby. Their first task was to clear up all the debris and make it habitable. Monks are trained to be content with little. They eat only one meal a day. They don't listen to music, watch television or read novels. They have to remain celibate and they are permitted few possessions. Their aim is to be free of everything which might distract them from their main task, putting into practice the Buddha's teaching about the path to enlightenment. The spiritual head of the order is the Venerable Ajahn Chah. He has come from Thailand for a few weeks to lend his support to the new sanctuary.
ในเวลานี้ชาวตะวันตกนี้
Many people in the West today seem to have much dissatisfaction and unhappiness in their hearts, and they feel they don't have a satisfactory means of dealing with it. The teachings of the Buddha offer the practice of meditation, which is a way of solving problems and overcoming confusion. We've been invited over here because many people want to learn how to put the teaching into practice, with the aim of finding a path through their confusion towards peace and calm.
But how is all this going to go down in West Sussex? For hundreds of years, Western Christians have exported their religion. Now, for the first time, the West is on the receiving end. The hardest point for the monks to get across was why they went on their traditional alms round. Were they just scroungers, or was this a vital part of Buddhist practice? To try to explain this and many other points, soon after they arrived, they held a meeting in the village hall. A film was shown on their parent monastery in Thailand, where most of them were trained.
These monks in northeast Thailand are on Bindabat, the daily dawn walk to receive their food offered by the villagers. They're not allowed to possess money, nor grow their own food. This ensures their total dependence on the lay community, so they can't cut themselves off in a spiritual cocoon. For the laity, Bindabat is a way of paying respect to the discipline of the monks, and also a way of making merit, which many believe brings good fortune in this life.
Rumours in the Sussex village have been rife. If they weren't the Moonies, then they were communist spies, or the abbot was the king of Thailand in disguise. There were many questions to be answered. The meeting was chaired. The monks' way of meeting doubts that they were just another weird and possibly dangerous sect was to invite the local people to the sanctuary to take a look for themselves. They explained that their rules forbade them to ask for food, and they didn't expect to be fed by their neighbours, but they were keeping up the tradition of the alms round partly as a way of making contact. Their one meal a day has to be eaten before noon. Part of their food will be grown by their lay helpers, and the rest will be donated by Buddhist supporters from further afield. Today it's been given by the Hampshire Buddhist Society. This temporary dining room was provided by their chairman, who owns a marquee company. You don't have to be a monk to be a devout Buddhist. You can lead an active business life, provided it's not an immoral one.
We've come today to offer a meal to the monks, which is known as dana, and this is an act of giving which establishes a sort of a relationship between lay people and the monks. And it's not, as is often thought, a case of just giving something to gain merit, but ideally, or in the perfect way, giving dana is a case of giving a little bit of oneself, and so it's in keeping with all the basic Buddhist teachings of the dropping ones he gave.
พวกชาวพุทธทั้งหลายได้มารวมการกระทำบุญในสถานที่นี้
Today all of you Buddhists have had a chance to come.
One of the monks' main roles is to teach. The idea is that the lay people provide food for the body and the monks provide food for the mind. The sanctuary is a kind of spiritual powerhouse where people come to be recharged. Meditation is seen as the path towards harmony. The Buddha taught that the main reason we become unhappy in life is that we fail to recognize that nothing can last forever. So we cling to possessions, our youth, happy feelings, our loved ones, in the vain hope that things will never change. And when they do, we feel thwarted and miserable. The aim of Buddhist practice, meditation combined with moral living, is a very down-to-earth one, to find a way of overcoming unhappiness. The Buddha taught that this can only be achieved when we reach a sense of detachment, a perspective from where we're no longer upset by the ups and downs of life. When we accept that all existence is impermanent, we begin to take things in our stride. And once we stop clinging to things as though they last forever, then we begin to overcome unhappiness. So meditation is taught as a way of reaching serenity, and it's one which anybody can systematically follow. The Buddha wasn't a god, but a man who 2,500 years ago found a way of reaching the ultimate serenity, nirvana. But meditation isn't regarded as something just for monks. Even the most menial work can be regarded as a form of meditation if it's carried out with awareness. The aim of the training is to make them constantly aware of the present moment. Since monks are forbidden to till the soil, this is done by a novice or layman. One of the community is a former property millionaire who now seeks a different kind of satisfaction. The Buddha taught that understanding is more important than believing, and that enlightenment doesn't come in the form of grace from a divine power, but as a result of man's own efforts to understand the teaching. Here the monks are performing a ceremony for a couple who've recently been married. The groom was once a monk himself. There's no dishonor in having disrobed, since Buddhists accept that all states are subject to change. Buddhist ceremonies aren't considered as sacred, merely as a means of focusing the mind, and they don't always have to be conducted with solemnity. At the end of the ceremony, they tie a thread as a gesture of good luck. Even the cat benefits from the ritual sprinkling.
When I was asked to come to England, people would say, are you going to wear those robes? They'll only repel people if people will think you're some kind of hippie or freak, and that it will not help Buddhism at all. You should dress for the particular cultural setting you're going to. And then we reflected on this for a while, and we thought that yet this is only a matter of opinion. It has to be tried first, because symbolically these robes have a tremendous amount of value, and the color, the shaven head, and all these are symbolic of those who leave the home life to the homeless life, like shaving the head. is a way of saying I'm giving up the worldly life, because hair can be a great sign of vanity and attraction. But we're not here to criticize or to fault find with the society, but to show by our own example a way that is possible to live in this society without being caught in the foolishness of it.
The main problem when one religion tries to understand another is the lack of a common vocabulary. This is what the local clergymen hoped to find. They showed the monks around a former Christian priory, which seemed a suitable setting for a metaphysical discussion.
What I'm worried about is that we don't seem to have a word which we can both use to describe what we're seeking. If I'm seeking ultimate truth, and if the abbot and Buddhist monks are seeking the ultimate truth, and if we accept that the ultimate truth cannot alter or be anything different, then there must be some way in which we can communicate with each other. The world will separate us, right? He's a Buddhist, I'm a Christian. But intrinsically, basically, in what I'm doing, I feel that there is as much between you and me as there is between any other worshipping and sincere and devout Christian. So that I can get anyway.
Local clergymen like the Reverend Christopher Boxley feel they personally can find a meeting point. But for the Church of England as a whole, does the presence of Buddhism in any way pose a threat? It's early days yet to see how Sussex will take to Buddhism. But it doesn't seem likely that familiar rituals will be abandoned in favour of Sunday afternoons in the lotus position. By comparison with the active pursuits of rural Sussex, Buddhist meditation might seem a rather passive and therefore unrewarding pastime. The monks don't condemn the active life, but their hope is to demonstrate to their neighbours that the most effective actions come from a still mind, and that the path to the still mind is meditation. The Buddha said, when a man attains wisdom through the teaching, he becomes serene and at peace, like a lake which is deep, clear, and still.
All this can never be fully understood if all we do is talk about it. Just as we can never know whether an apple tastes sweet or sour, unless we actually taste it for ourselves. The ultimate truth is like the flavor of an apple, which you can't see with the eye or hear with the ear. The only way to experience it is to put the teaching into practice. Once you've tasted it, you'll no longer be in any doubt about its flavor, and you won't have to ask anyone else. The problem will be solved.